My name is Roland. I'm in my 32nd year now, helping people cope with stress. And I would like to talk about a Christian approach to stress. And that would be what? That would be putting God first. That's it. Christ told us. He said, put first the kingdom of God in his right way, and all other things will be added unto you. So first you put God, and then everything else. So how do you put God first? Well, there's a very simple way of doing it. See, what I want to focus on is the instant or the moment of confrontation, the moment where something presents itself to you. Well, I want to look at the moment. See, we have a tendency, first of all, to look in the wrong place and to focus on incidentals. There's a term in the business world. What is that? It's majoring in the minors. We look in the wrong place and we look at the wrong things. What you need to do is to look at the moment. In the moment when something presents itself to you. Now, here's a little example. Your partner comes to you with a question, and you have a tendency to resent her or him coming to you with a question because they've asked it before, or you sense that there's something behind the question, or you resent them because you want to do something else, or you resent them because you're busy doing something and they know you're doing that, and they know you don't like to be disturbed when you're doing that, and so on and so forth. But that's the mistake. Because what are you doing? You are putting yourself first. Then some of us, what we do is we feel guilty. See, you resent your wife, you resent your husband, and now you feel guilty. So then what do? You try to bend over backwards to be extra nice to them and make up for it. You see what I mean? But what you're really doing is putting yourself first again, because you want them to see you in a good light. You want to take away the guilt. You want to make yourself feel good. You want them to like you again. You want to be back in their good graces because you're afraid of losing some perk. You're afraid that there's going to be an argument and there's going to be tension in the air and you want to have peace. And so you see how it's selfish. So how do you put God first in his right way? In that moment, that instant, when they present something to you, you take a mental step back and in your mind, you have only one goal. And it's not really a goal, but let's call it a goal. You have only one goal in mind, and that is to always do what you know is right in your heart. You always want to do what you know is right in your heart. So here comes somebody with something. You don't know what to say. You don't know what to do. But all you know is you want to do what's right in your heart. And so you stand back, and it's almost like a silent cry to God. That's what it is. You say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what the right thing is. And every time in the past I've said something, I've always messed it up. Either I was impatient and mean, or I bent over backwards and tried to be too nice, or I said something that I had memorized in the past and there was no love in it and the timing was not right. And see? So now you just stand there, almost like you're dumb. I mean, you're not really dumb, but almost like you're dumb. You don't try to think of anything clever to say. You don't try to think of something clever to do. You don't try to dig back in your memory banks for something that somebody told you or some book you read or some course you took. You just stand there in total innocence and you have no idea. And then you know what? But you really and truly want to do what you know is right in your heart. Then you know what? Something will come to you. And it'll be just right. Or nothing comes to you and then nothing is what you're supposed to do. You put God first. You put him first in his right way. You want to know what's right. And you don't know what's right. And you want to do what's right and you don't know how to do what's right. So you stand back and he answers. See, do you remember in the Bible there was Solomon, and God said he would grant Solomon one wish. Solomon could have wished for riches, for fame, for fortune, for a long life, for praise and awards. And he could have wished for all that kind of stuff. But you know what he said? He said, I would like to have the wisdom to rule my people properly. And because of the sincerity and of that request, God granted it, and he gave Solomon great wisdom. So when you stand there and you want to do what you know is right in your heart by your wife or your husband or your child, then something comes to you. It's wordless. It's intuitive. It's gut level. And it's right. It's the most beautiful thing. So that's what you have to learn how to do, is put God first and not yourself first. Do you get it? And don't try to come up with something clever, because if you do, it's just your ego getting in the way and messing everything up all over again. So, do you understand now? It's very simple. Put God first in his right way. And the way you do that is in the moment. Now, some of you have a hard time of standing back. You get wrapped up in all the details. In fact, that's the story of your life. Remember, I was wondering what the business expression is, majoring in the minors. A lot of you are so busy with details. And the reason for that is that you are in a little bit of a trance. Now, here's a little bit more psychological theory for you, because this will be helpful to you. So you say, well, Roland, I would like to do what you just said. I would like to be able to take a mental step back and silently and wordlessly cry out to God and know what to do in the moment. But I don't know how to do that. Well, then let me offer you some help right there. So let's talk about the theory again. Most of you are in a trance. You don't realize it. It's usually undetectable. You walk around. One thing grabs your attention, and then something else grabs your attention. You have lost the ability to direct your own attention. Instead, it is grabbed by something, and then whatever grabs your attention holds it and usually ends up upsetting you. You're driving along, and then there's a traffic backup, and it grabs your attention, and then it makes you upset. And the phone rings and the boss has some extra work for you, or he sends you a text message and there's more work and it upsets you. And then some coworker tries to lay extra work on you and it upsets you. And you go through life getting upset by everything. And every time you get upset, all you're doing is conditioning yourself to be more upset. So soon everything is a stimulus on the outside to upset you. So then you're so upset, so nervous, so tense, so agitated, that you start having people problems, because in your agitated, upset, nervous state, you're incapable of dealing with people properly. You deal with them impatiently, angrily, because they upset you too, see? Everything upsets you. So then you have people problems, and that upsets you. And then you end up having health problems. You get a tummy ache, a headache, an eye ache, and that upsets you. So pretty soon you're upset all the time. And you walk around lost in your thoughts for two reasons. Number one, they are a refuge from reality. In reality, you failed in reality. You failed with your wife, with your partner, with your husband, with your kids. You failed with them. And it's obvious, communication is not good. There is unfinished business. And so you don't want to see it. You don't want to admit it. And so you hide from reality. Reality is where God is. Reality is where his help is. Reality is where truth is, and instead you hide in fantasy. You hide in daydreams. You hide in illusions. You hide in thoughts and worries and fears and doubts and daydreaming about this and daydreaming about that. That's where you hide. So when you're walking around down there, hiding in thoughts and fantasy and imagination and illusion and delusions, see, down there you can feel like you're a really nice person. You can feel like you're hard done by, like you're a martyr, like you're so misunderstood, like people don't understand you and nobody appreciates you. And your thoughts support you in those types of, that kind of an attitude, don't they? And so there you are, feeling very sorry for yourself. And now you walk around with an attitude, and that leads to more people problems. And then you feel guilty, and then you bend over backwards to be too nice to them. And when you're too nice, they take advantage. And then when they take advantage, then you resent them for that. You get it? So what are you going to do? Well, you have to get out of your thoughts. You have to get out of your daydreams. You have to get out of your fantasy and come back to reality. Do you get it? All right. So how are you going to do that? So when you're walking around lost in thinking, you're in a trance. And then what contributes to it is what I have already said. The things grab your attention. And then you get lost in them. See, another way to escape from the truth of your failure to meet life with patience, with love, with kindness, with wisdom. Your failure, you don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. And so you escape. So if you're not escaping into thoughts and daydreams and fantasies, then you're escaping into everything else. So you escape into whatever captures your attention. So this text message captures your attention. This item you can buy at Amazon captures your attention. That music captures your attention. See, that conversation captures your attention. All these details capture your attention, and they take you away from being able to stand back and get the big picture and be in reality. In reality is where you need to be to deal with people properly and to deal with issues properly. So how are you going to find reality? Well, I already said that in the moment, when something presents itself, if you take a step back and watch from the neutral zone. You know, you've heard people say, take a step back, mental step back, or you've heard people say, count to 10. That's kind of the idea. You take a step back. You get the big picture. In your heart, you want to do what's right. You always want to do what you know is right in your heart. So you don't have any pre-plan or agenda. So if somebody comes to you and they say, you did me wrong, you take a mental step back and you see that you did do them wrong. And then you say, yeah, you're right. I did you wrong. Somebody comes to you and asks you a question, you could be phony with them. You take a mental step back and you give them a real answer. See, it's beautiful. That's how you have to live. You have to be real. The most real person who ever lived was Christ. He was real. He lived in reality. He told people the truth. And he didn't hide in fantasy. He didn't have to hide in fantasy because he wasn't guilty. And he didn't fail in life. He succeeded in every second, every microsecond. He dealt with it properly because he always wanted to do what was right in his heart. He always wanted to do what he knew was right in his heart. That was his attitude. He took a mental step back. And God, revealed to him or moved through him. And it was beautiful. So I want you to see the importance of that. So now you say, Roland, it sounds so beautiful. I understand what you're saying. I want to be able to take a mental step back. I don't know how. I can see that right now I am caught up in daydreams. I'm caught up in fantasies. I'm caught up in blaming my wife, my husband, my ex-wife. I'm caught up in all the details. I'm majoring in the minors. I have a lot of people problems, and that upsets me, and everything upsets me, and I sit around and worry, and I don't know what to do. Well, then what you need to do is to practice. Now listen. This is very important. Listen. See, would you believe that some people, once in a while, they call me. See, I give my listener calling line, so they call me up with some problem, and then sometimes I call back. Sometimes it's beautiful. They hear a little something that's helpful to them, but sometimes they don't even hear what I'm saying. They just keep repeating all the details. Well, she said this and she did that, and I wanted her to do this and she didn't do that, and then she did this, and can you believe she actually did that? And I tried to tell them something, but then she said this, and then the next thing that happened, it's like they're just repeating the whole story over and over again. They don't hear me. They're too caught up in it. So you have to not be that way. You have to come out of being caught up in everything. So how do you do that? Well, here it is. Are you ready? Listen. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you how to get out from being caught up in everything so you can do what you know is right in your heart and say the right thing and do right by people for the first time in your life. Do right by your husband, your wife, your partner, your kids, other people. And be real and be transparent and be patient and have kindness and have love and have courage. Yes, the courage to tell the truth, but not with anger. So you need all of that. Where's it going to come from? You don't have it now. You don't have courage. Yeah, you have anger. You get angry and you think you're in control, but you're actually out of control. See? You think you're clever, but it's because you're just spouting a bunch of memorized things that you memorized. You took a course, you got a master's degree, you heard somebody say something, and then you lay it on other people. Or you read something in the Bible and you lay it on other people. And they see there's no love in it. And then you wonder why you fail. I'm going to tell you how to practice getting out of all that stuff and coming back to reality and closer to God. Are you ready? I'm going to tell you now. Here it is. Or are you lost in something already? Here's what you do. You practice coming back to reality. Listen. You practice coming back to reality when you have a quiet moment. And then, having come back to reality in the quiet moment, you go out into the world pre-armed with that perspective, pre-armed with the perspective of wanting to do what you know is right in your heart for every moment, pre-armed with patience, pre-armed with calmness. And then, when something presents itself, you are already standing back. You're already a bit distant and closer to God and closer to reality. And then you watch from reality. You watch from that perspective. And you call upon God. And your mind is clear. Your perception is clear. Your discernment is clear. And then you say or do the right thing. You have to practice coming back to reality. The time to try to come back to reality is not when you're standing there arguing with your kids or arguing with your partner. That's not the time to try to come back to reality. You're too upset. You can't find it. You have to recover from your upset first. It's not when you've made a mess out of something and come home and take a drink or go to the refrigerator and eat too much. The time to come back to reality is when you have a little time to come back to reality in calmness. You need to find reality in advance. You need to practice coming back to reality at home, first thing in the morning before you go out in the world and get upset. If you have a few moments at lunchtime, or sitting quietly on your porch, or quietly sitting somewhere on your sofa. Find reality, find that mental distance, that perspective, that calmness, and then go out into the world. When you meet the vicissitudes of life, you will already be pre-armed with patience and calmness and courage, and wisdom is available. Even just being calm and reasonable and rational and not angry and not upset, even that is good. But when you add to that the extra dimension of the inner light from God to which you have access when you're not lost in the dark light of the imagination, it's a winning combination. Practice in advance. That's why I always talk about the little meditation that I give away. It's free. Within a couple of minutes, you can learn how to find reality, learn how to stand back from the bedlam of thoughts and emotions, and worries and doubts, and come up out of the fog and the clouds of upset and emotions and fantasies up into the beautiful blue sky where reality is, where the sun is, where the birds are singing. It's that beautiful, it's that dramatic, and it's that simple. And then take it with you out into the world. Take it with you. You bring the reality with you. Christ had a light. He was a bright light. And he told us, he said, you are the light of the world. He was talking to his disciples. Would you like to be the light of the world for your family, for your children? Would you like to be able to discern the right thing to do and then have the courage to do it? When everybody else says, you got to do this, you got to do this. Oh, it's so wonderful, it's so safe. Oh, it's good, so effective, it's so wonderful, you got to do it. Do you have the courage do you see clearly that it's not what they say? And do you have the courage to go a different way? Well, you need to pre-armed with it. See, you have to be coming from the dimension where courage comes from. See, it comes from God. Somebody once said, all good comes from God. The courage comes from God. The love comes from God. The patience. See, you can be patient when you have love in you, but where does the love come from? It comes from Him. And it's there unless you become disconnected. See, that's your problem. You're always becoming disconnected. When you get lost in thoughts, you're disconnected. When you get lost in worries, you're disconnected. When you're lost in studying, you're disconnected. When you're upset about something, you're disconnected. When you're trying to plan and scheme something very clever to say or to get even with somebody or to fool them or to trick them or to manipulate them or to get over on them, you're disconnected. But when you stand back with no thought, no emotion, no plan, no agenda, you're just totally innocent. And you stand there and you don't know what to say, but you want to do what you know is right in your heart. Then it'll come to you, and you will be a light, a shining light. Your children need to see that light. Your partner needs to see that light. Have they ever seen love? Has anybody seen love? You can imagine people who saw Christ when they saw love in Him. That's why so many people loved Him, because they saw the love in Him that they had never seen in any of their phony authorities. All their false, phony, lying, deceiving, pompous, arrogant, intellectual authorities. They never saw love, but they saw it in Him. Your children need to see love in you. So I think I've said quite a bit. You could listen to this program again. It's available at our archives at sheddingshackles.com, sheddingshackles.net, or sheddingshackles.us. I've also written many books. I have many, many books available at Amazon. You can preview them there. You can buy them in quality paperback or as a Kindle edition. Go to the website. I have many YouTube videos and the archive programs. Become real. Your kids need to see you as a real person, not a phony. My name is Roland. That's not the time to try to come back to reality. You're too upset. You can't find it. You have to recover from your upset first. That's not the time to try to come back to reality. You need to find reality in advance. You need to practice coming back to reality at home, first thing in the morning before you go out in the world and get upset. If you have a few moments at lunchtime, or sitting quietly on your porch, or quietly sitting somewhere on your sofa, find reality, find that mental distance, that perspective, that calmness, and then go out into the world. When you meet the vicissitudes of life, you will already be pre-armed with patience and calmness and courage, and wisdom is available. Even just being calm and reasonable and rational and not angry and not upset, even that is good. But when you add to that the extra dimension of the inner light from God to which you have access when you're not lost in the dark light of the imagination, it's a winning combination. Practice in advance. That's why I always talk about the little meditation that I give away. It's free. Within a couple of minutes, you can learn how to find reality, learn how to stand back from the bedlam of thoughts and emotions and worries and doubts, and come up out of the fog and the clouds of upset and emotions and fantasies up into the beautiful blue sky where reality is, where the sun is, where the birds are singing. It's that beautiful, it's that dramatic, and it's that simple.